Hello, everybody, and welcome to Atheist Sunday School, your one-stop shop for everything Atheist Sunday and school. And boy, do we have a show for you today. Today we are covering Jeremiah chapters 25 through 27.
Chapters 25 through 27.
Hey, are we showing up?
We should. It says we have an excellent connection. 0 frames dropped. It's just connecting.
Oh, it's just connecting.
It's just connecting.
Gotcha.
Everything's been really annoying today.
Yeah. Okay. So as you can see, Ruben is not here.
Yep.
I'm gonna guess. Was he raptured? Is like Jehovah came and it was Reuben?
You know, I think it might have been all those times when he was raptured. This was just the final straw, and he was finally taken away. But no, it's so on a more serious note, we have been gone for a while. If you have been seeing the posts on our community tab, so Ruben, I don't think he had COVID, but he got into contact with it, I guess. So he had a test. We don't know what the results were, but he had to quarantine anyways just to be safe. So yeah. This should be the last show for that. So everything will be back to normal on Friday. So
we freaking hope. I mean, it has been a weird 2 weeks. I usually see Ruben every day. It's
right.
Like, dang.
Right. So he will be back for that. And these past couple weeks have just not been good, like, at all. Like, I was flossing last week and I had a filling fall out, so now there's just a giant hole in my tooth that I can't get fixed until Tuesday, which is annoying.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I was in the shower and a tooth cracked. I was like, how can you crack a tooth in the shower? Well, I don't know, but it did. So when I went to the dentist to get it repaired, they did that nice little squishy thing to get the thing, and that squishy mouth mold pulled another tooth. So yeah, I had some interesting, but it was amusing. We laughed about it, and now I got my teeth back.
Man, everything has just been so weird these past couple weeks. This is what happens when we don't have Atheist Sunday School. Shit gets weird.
Yeah.
There you go. So I should say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on your time zone, latitude, and level of caffeination. And hello from your friendly secular astronomer. And I wish Ruben a speedy recovery or return or whatever.
Yeah, whatever it may be. So yeah, and aside from that, the show was late today. We were trying to figure out some connection issues. We had mic problems. This is what we had. But
it was a nightmare for me. I've never had to scramble so hard before for things I didn't need.
Yeah, but we figured it out. I had to restart. We had to restart the laptop.
This is why shows need a producer because the hosts themselves are just powerless. You need the person behind the camera and microphone to help fix things.
Absolutely. Big applause for Chris, everybody.
I said not to restart, but yay, I was wrong.
Big applause for Chris. I want to see all those applaud emojis in the chat.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Clap.
Yeah, so today we are covering Jeremiah 25 through 27. Obviously, we're continuing this very exciting book. This is the most exciting book, obviously the least depressing.
Longest.
Yeah, definitely the longest. So before we hop into this, let's talk about the kind of the structure, the setting of this first chapter that we're getting into.
Oh, we forgot to spin the wheel, man.
Oh, that's right. We have to spin the wheel.
I totally missed that.
So much hectic stuff is going on. Let's watch Landon win a t-shirt.
All right.
Yeah. We'll see.
I might, other people it's possible.
Yeah, it's a 50-50 shot here.
Ah, there it is.
Got to put it back. Ready?
Yep.
Spinning.
Spin that wheel.
Here it goes.
It's going.
Oh my gosh, it's just barely landed.
It just barely landed. All right.
Oh.
Looks like we got to think of a shirt.
Yeah. No,
You're a winner, man.
Congratulations, Landon, for
because you can if you contribute a level, you can win T-shirts like this one, the old T-shirt. See?
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant one. And in fact, I happen to like our newest T-shirt. It's not going to be our newest for much longer because we have to make another one. But
camera one.
Right.
666.
Yes, our Drive 666 T-shirt with the with the little bee holding it. I don't know. I happen to think it's pretty damn cute. So yeah, that's a very good one.
In the other room, but I was trying to figure out which one to. I thought I read that one, wore one that last time, so I wanted to mix it up.
Right. Makes perfect sense. All right. So we have given away a shirt to Landon.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations, Landon. And we have had technical problems today, and we're missing a host. Really, things have fallen apart. So how about
we continue this train wreck in slow motion with starting Jeremiah chapter 25's commentary.
Should we? Well, let's recap the plot of Jeremiah.
Oh, please! Everyone's totally forgot.
Now.
Yeah.
So about a bunch of things. And then this Nebuchadnezzar king carried away.
Yeah, so we are getting into the exile stuff. So people are going to be away from the land, and that's what we're getting into this week, at least. So up until this point, you have this invasion that's coming in. The exile is upon them. And Jeremiah is, he has spent almost this entire time lamenting, talking about, you can delve into a lot of different theological issues, but one of the issues is obviously, what has he done to deserve this kind of stuff? Like, he's been so good, and, he's calling for the wrath of God to come down on these enemies. And God has mixed feelings about it, I guess, because considering the verses about, he is sending these people to, if he views the Israelites as being evil or having been evil, then he is sending these enemies to do the justice. But at the same time, Jeremiah is, he's been a very faithful servant, right? So he's going to, plea with God, as is tradition. So that's
sort of, but there's definitely at least 3 oives here with this whole passage we're going to be reading. And it is a case where all those texts that you read before, where so the Lord gave this promised land to Abraham and his descendants forever, and will never, Well, I guess he kind of reneged on that. But I guess the other side of the coin is to say, well, the people deserved it because I think it starts with those high places, right? They did not clear out those high places except for a couple of times, and then it was only temporary.
Yeah, absolutely. Those high places, they cause a lot of issues. You do not want to tangle with the high places.
They are the primary issue. It keeps coming up.
Yeah, it does. Let's.
Yes. So, and again in 24, we saw that Nebuchadnezzar had, carried away the son of Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, and all the captives and craftsmen.
Yeah.
Jerusalem.
Yeah, the last chapter was it was that metaphor with the good and the bad figs.
Mm-hmm. The 2 figs.
Yeah. That was that one. So before we hop into this into chapter 25, let's talk a little bit about its construction. So this is you know what? I should probably introduce some of the books that we're going over, huh? Because yes. I'm the one doing this now. So let's get started. For today's show, I will be using the English Standard Version. I have Erdman's commentary on the Bible. I also have the Hermenia commentary on Jeremiah from William Holiday. We also have Robert Alter's translation and commentary on the Hebrew Bible. We have the Holy Scriptures according to some Jews and the new King James Version of the Bible. And if I really feel like it, I have a King James Version over there. So what translation are you using, Landon?
So today I will be reading from the New American Standard Bible, a reference edition, A.G. Holman Company, and probably copyright God someplace. And we have to say that in hopes that God doesn't send a DCMA takedown for,
Yeah, I sure hope he wouldn't. But he does have an issue handling money, as we have seen from church pastors, from all those mega church guys. God needs money. So, this is broken down in the chapter itself is broken down into multiple sections from Holiday. And the first unit that he has is Jeremiah 25, 1 through 14. Analysis of this passage presents great difficulty. The contrast between the Greek and Masoretic of these verses and the rhetoric of both forms of text make it clear that the passage has undergone much redactional activity.
How is that? Did God come down and mess with the gallery proofs and edit some things, or
God changed his mind again?
Man,
he changes his mind a lot.
I mean, he does. It happens. So, a lot of the time in textual traditions, you have, so you have one manuscript, right? Like, let's call it just whatever the initial manuscript is. We don't have any of those, but let's say you have an initial manuscript. Man, my throat is just dry. You have an initial manuscript, and then somebody has to copy that. You want to have a copy of it, you got to copy it, or you have to hire somebody to copy it. So they copy it. But if you ever tried copying a huge book, I don't know why you would have, but if you tried, you'd make some mistakes, 100%.
And so would the people who copied you.
Yes, exactly.
And telephone.
Yes, it goes on. Like you just said, like the telephone game. But it's this whole big generational thing, and sometimes you can try to correct what you might think is a mistake, but if you correct it improperly, then you just have another mistake. Which happens.
Isn't there also a general problem that if you got some text and someone for religious study purposes puts in some commentary, that someone then copies that with the commentary and the commentary becomes part of the text?
Yes, that also does happen. Absolutely. One of the most famous examples of that, although it's a little more complicated than just that, one of the most famous examples of that is the Johannine comma. And that's the, 1 John 5, what is it? 1 John 5, 7 through 8, I think. I think that's the verse. I might be wrong. Yeah. But it's the only verse that explicitly outlines the Trinity doctrine. Like, you can get to the Trinity doctrine by putting other verses together, by reasoning it out, but that is the only verse in the Bible that explicitly gives you the Trinity doctrine. These three are one.
Yeah. And so if one might ask, if God wanted words preserved perfectly, why didn't God have photocopiers invented rather early?
Well, that is a good question.
It's too advanced.
Anyway, so here we have this set, and so in 25 we start with the Judah's captivity and Babylon's fall.
Yes, and I can hop on to chapter 25 then, if we're ready to go then. And Jason, Ruben is okay. Yes, the quarantine thing is continuing. We made some posts about it, talked about it at the start of the show. So yeah, it's okay though. We were late too.
They're anticipating Reuben returning. He has not been selected by Jehovah to go up into what would be hell, because could you imagine having an eternity praising Jeebus for an eternity?
I can imagine it, but it does sound pretty bad.
You know, I think you might enjoy it.
Anyway, please.
I mean, consider how great our Jesus has been on this show.
Oh yeah, right.
All right, let's hop in to chapter 25, I suppose. I'm going to have some water beforehand because my throat is killing me right now.
Yeah, because one must have holy water when reading the Holy Scriptures.
We do have that.
Now I'm thirsty. Everybody's drinking.
We do have holy water.
Mm-hmm.
We do.
Please don't use that.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, we do. We used it for our demon summoning.
Yes, it's true. It's from Holy Hill, in fact.
All right.
Blessed and sanctified by an archdiocese. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's super special holy water.
Yeah, he came by once, and that was good enough. Ever in life.
I think there's a blessing on it too, isn't there?
Yeah, yes. And now that's the incantation we all had to read too. Remember that? That was so silly.
Oh man,
it's not getting better. You need even more water.
All right, let's hop into chapter 25. The word that came to Jeremiah concerning all the people of Judah in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah. That was the 1st year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. So lots of, placing it in history. This would be 599 BCE, 6 years after the Babylonian army defeated the Egyptians in the decisive battle of Karshemish, thus threatening to dominate the entire Fertile Crescent.
Now, my text has the phrase "that was the 1st year of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon" in parentheses.
Yes, so does mine.
And that is that parenthetical thing. Is that an editorial addition? Because obviously in the Hebrew they didn't have. I don't think they had parentheses.
Honestly, I have no idea. I couldn't tell you. I have absolutely no clue how that even works.
Does King James have it as a parenthetical comment?
I don't know. I don't have that one open. But I am going to talk about this a little bit. So by the reckoning of the spring new year assumed in the present study, the 4th year of Jehoiakim extended. Okay, so he actually kind of disagrees with Alter on this. So the 4th year. Oh, actually, no, never mind. He doesn't. Sorry, I had to do some extra math. So by the reckoning of the spring new year assumed in the present study, the 4th year of Jehoiakim extended from March or April 605 to March or April 604. By that reckoning, there is a difficulty in the synchronism with Nebuchadnezzar, since he assumed power in September 605, and his ascension year thus extended for the half year until the next Babylonian New Year's Day in 604. And his 1st year will then have extended from 604 to 603. The problem is not only with this passage, but with the synchronisms in... okay. So here's other stuff he's taking from other verses. So 32:1 and 52:12 as well. We evidently have to do with a redactor with a consistent understanding of chronology. The problem would be solved if one assumes an autumnal new year for Judah at this period, since there would then be an overlap of 6 months. But that reckoning brings other difficulties in its train. That's a weird phrasing, but okay. One suggestion for the present passage is to see in the unique form of 1st here. Yes, to see... I can't read the Hebrew, but it is just a slightly different form of the same word. So the implication of ascension year, or else a corruption of the term for ascension year. If ascension year were here corrupted to 1st year, then the 1 year errors in 32:1 and 52:12 might have followed.
Yeah,
that's kind of nice.
And in talking about autumnal, they're talking about the equinox, and so here it's a way of deciding that your year starts on the autumn equinox, at least in the northern hemisphere, because this notion of when is the beginning of a year is an arbitrary designation, and in fact, the notion of January 1st being the start of the year is a relatively recent event, at least recent in terms of recorded history. And for that, see the history guy on one of his shows about years. Autumnal years, talking about that stuff. So anyway, but that's back to the thing of stuff. Here, they're talking about the first year of a king as a reckoning. It would have been very confusing back in those days to have years going backwards, right? That 522.
Oh well, yeah.
Next year's 521. They wouldn't. They had this confusion of counting down to something that they don't know was happening, and then having Jeebus born or not, and sometime, and then getting those all confusion. So the reckonings back then were done on the year of someone's reign.
Yeah.
Right. And as historians, we have to, because they're saying, the first year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, right? So you have to figure out, well, when did he ascend to the throne? And if it was disputed, whose line or dispute as to when he was considered king or not?
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's difficult, like especially with some of the Egyptian pharaohs, it can be pretty difficult, because maybe there was a co-regency or something. So that
and they sometimes also edit out their predecessors, right? They decide that their predecessors should be impeached and tried, and then they delete that name from all the statues. And so what we're left with is essentially gaps in history.
Yeah, and
together.
One of the most famous ones was that happened to quite a few pharaohs, but one of the most famous ones was, of course, Hatshepsut that happened to. Completely erased everything. All right, let's continue. Which Jeremiah the prophet spoke to all the people of Judah and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem for 23 years, from the 13th year of Josiah, the son of Ammon, king of Judah, to this day. The word of the Lord has come to me, and I have spoken persistently to you, but you have not listened. You have neither listened nor inclined your ears to hear. Although the Lord persistently sent to you all his servants, the prophets, saying, turn now, every one of you, from his evil way and evil deeds, and dwell upon the land that the Lord has given to you and your fathers, from the old and forever. That's an interesting construction there.
So, and mine says, has given to you and your fathers forever and ever, right? So are we about to see that promise retracted?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we are.
Or do the apologists say, well, it was their land, but God temporarily removed them to another land in exile. It was still their land, and they just was like letting the Babylonians borrow it.
Yeah, I suppose.
How is rationalization of that done?
I don't even know. I don't know how God could do such a thing. So one of the notes here from Alter, the Hebrew for the end, the end of that last verse there, of verse 5, he translated it as for all time, although he notes that the Hebrew shows a grand rhetorical flourish, literally from everlasting to everlasting. Although the taking away of the land might seem to contradict this notion of its eternal donation to Israel, the Hebrew idiom actually suggests something short of eternity. On the order of from a very long time ago to a very long time to come. So not quite forever, but a very, very long time, which I guess you could say is accurate.
So I'm wondering, with regards to continental drift, as the continents reform, will God shift the land is given to the Jews to a different spot?
That's a very good question. I assume that would be an option that he can take.
It's the dirt itself, guys. Doesn't matter where the dirt is. The land is holy. Ooh, yeah. How do you like that?
Well, I mean, a lot of people do take dirt from certain places.
That's bad.
No, didn't we? Did we? Okay, was that a biblical thing? Was there a biblical story that had someone taking dirt, or was that an apocryphal thing?
That sounds apocryphal.
Or is that a completely different mythology that I'm thinking of?
It's hard for me to recall.
But somebody took some dirt with them, and then I've already forgotten.
And that's I think there's been that stuff that's happened. Now, in looking at the models of continental drift in the future, that the Middle East is going to kind of get smashed together, and the Mediterranean will close. So it won't necessarily directly go away, but it might get a little bit subducted. So is it that but it's believed that it's debated whether or not Pangaea will be able to reform again. And so while you're looking, I will look to see where the models of Israel lie in future continental drifts. And
I mean, I don't think. I think it would, just by just as a statement alone, I think that it going back to like the way it was as Pangaea would be unlikely. I figured it'd be different.
It'd be a different arrangement, but he means a mega.
Oh, just you just mean a mega continent. Yeah. Okay. Well then, I guess I would.
It's possible because the trends.
Pangaea Ultima is what it's.
There we
go.
Called. That's a cool name
for those that are.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. But also, thank you, Jason. I knew I remembered something. It was from 2 Kings 5, Naman the Syrian. Okay, I knew I remembered something like that. The whole taking of dirt thing. Okay.
This is why we have knowledgeable people in our chat room.
Absolutely.
And, if you're in a chat room, if you could press that little like button, thumbs up button,
and Landon
algorithm.
And Landon is a genius, so you have to do what he says. I mean, come on.
Brainwashing, do it.
Yeah, really not much more commentary on verse 5 there. Let's move on. So, this looks familiar. Do not go after other gods to serve and worship them, or provoke me to anger with the work of your hands. Then I will do you no harm. Of course, the work of your hands being
idol creation.
Yeah, being gods. Foreign gods, of course. Yet you have not listened to me, declares the Lord, that you might provoke me to anger with the work of your hands to your own harm. Very strange formation there, in my opinion, of those verses. But okay, but apparently, so as in the previous sentence, the Hebrew ra means both evil and harm. So I guess kind of a wordplay there. All right, let's continue. Therefore, thus says the Lord of hosts, because you have not obeyed my words, behold, I will send for all the tribes of the north, declares the Lord, and for Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and I will bring them against this land and its inhabitants, and against all these surrounding nations. Of course, his servant there, not in the same way as it's not a suffering servant. It's just servant in the same way as like any kind of
man of
commander.
Okay.
Yeah, any kind of commander would have been a servant. Like, especially with the moniker or with the epithet Lord of Hosts being put there. He's kind of like assigning a general role, a role of a general to Nebuchadnezzar there. But of course, yeah, it's all to punish here. So, let's continue on. And of course, on the punishment note, I will devote. Did I skip a thing? No, I didn't. Okay. I will devote them to destruction and make them a horror, a hissing, and an everlasting desolation. So interesting stuff there from verse 9, I suppose. Here's quite a bit on this. The reference of the... I'm just trying to follow along here. He mentions quite a few things, Holiday does, and I'm just trying to find a good place to start. Of course, he has a place where he talks about the tribes of the north, referring to Babylon, and of course, the my servant thing that we just covered. He touches on that as well. The verb dedicate to destruction is not found otherwise in Jeremiah, nor is its related noun. Again, Hebrew I can't read, but it looks very similar. It's just a little bit, I think it's pronounced just a little bit differently. And the usage here with Yahweh as subject is found only once otherwise in the Old Testament. The verb means to destroy, especially in war, something or someone excluded from normal private use. The usage here may well be a reflection of Deuteronomy 13:16, where such destruction is decreed for an Israelite city which has resorted to idolatry. Yeah, all right.
Oh dear.
It seemed very, I want to say the language was very biblical, but I feel like that would just be redundant. So
It's the Bible.
I know.
Very biblical.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt like there would be no point in saying that. But I think you get what I'm going after.
I had to say,
Yeah. Moreover, I will banish from them the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, the grinding of the millstones and the light of the lamp. So there's a lot of stuff in there. Let's see. So the sound of millstones and the light of the lamp. The former are not large millstones, but hand mills used domestically by women on a regular basis to grind grain. The lamp, a small earthenware oil lamp, would have been used in these domestic settings when the sun went down. So I am a little lost as what...
They're just talking about milling wheat.
Well, I know that they're talking about that. So is he saying that God will just take them away from their culture?
He's going to grind them up, make their bones into bread.
Well, it says he's going to banish them from the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride. Okay, so he's going to take men and women away from the things that they usually do, is what I'm getting.
Yeah.
There's not really... Yeah. Okay, so yeah, the sound of millstones and the light of the lamp are doubtless intended to signify the beginning and the end of the day. What? I guess?
Yeah, it's sort of the cycle of life type of thing.
Yeah, I suppose. All right.
Say.
I guess I wasn't far off. All right. This whole land shall become a ruin and a waste, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years. Then, after 70 years are completed, I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation, the land of the Chaldeans, for their iniquity, declares the Lord, making the land an everlasting waste.
So it says 70 years. So historically, how long was it? Or are they back billing? Is it 70? One of those?
No, I'm pretty sure it was 70.
Means a while.
Or like,
I think. Or are they trying to be?
I'm pretty sure it was very, very close to 70. Maybe it was like a year less or something. I don't remember the exact amount of years, but it was 70 is fine.
Yeah.
I'd have to look back at again to how long it was because I don't remember the exact dates.
All right.
All right, so 70 years of exile. And of course, the Chaldean reference there, that has come up quite a bit. Okay, so this number on the 70 years thing is formulaic, though much would be made of it later, as the book of Daniel illustrates. Yeah, since the term 70 years is evidently original, but does not fit precisely any pair of dates, okay, so it wasn't 70 years. Okay, so one must assume that it was intended as a round number suggesting a normal lifespan, but it may reflect an idiom wider than the Old Testament. In the Black Stone of Esarhaddon, of course, I think Esarhaddon was an Assyrian king. It is the period of time during which Marduk shows displeasure toward Babylon. It thus evidently designates the proper period for an ancient oriental city to lie desolate. Compare Isaiah 23:15. But as a calculation, the datum entered into the discourse of the post-exilic period. In Zechariah 1:12, it seems to refer to the period of the destruction of the temple after 587, since the completion of the second temple was in 516 and 515. In 2 Chronicles, it refers erroneously to the period from the fall of Jerusalem to the edict of Cyrus in 538. And in Daniel 9:2, it enters into the calculations regarding Antiochus Epiphanes, namely that it is to mean 70 weeks of years. That is 490 years. Yeah, so there's that.
It's one of those. Sevens are some of these sort of biblical numerology thing, meaning long span.
And 7 necessarily would just be more about completeness. Like something has been, so it has been done.
It is thoroughly complete because it's 10 times 7. Maybe.
All right. Let's see. I will bring upon that land all the words that I have uttered against it, everything written in this book, which Jeremiah prophesied against all the nations. So that's interesting. This book is that would probably be referring to like maybe the first Jeremiah, I guess, the first stratum of Jeremiah, you could put it. Or well, let's see what else.
I don't think that doesn't sound like what Jeremiah would write about himself. Was this commentary that was injected into?
Well, I am currently checking on that because saying
it says,
this book.
It says, "My words which I have pronounced against it, all that is written in this book, which Jeremiah has prophesied against all the nations." It's kind of like he's doing kind of like a Bob Dole thing, speaking to himself in third person, or is this somebody who has added this commentary into that text?
I could swear I remember seeing some commentary about that specific thing when I was going over it.
Because in this paragraph, the next in my edition, the entire next verse at the end of the paragraph is an entire parenthetical statement. So it reads to me as if someone injected into this thing. They're saying, yeah, they're trying to explain the previous thing. And because 13 starts off, and I will bring upon the land all my words which are pronounced against it. Right? If it stopped there, then that's fine. But I think someone then said this. They probably added it sounds like it's added a commentary saying in this book, which Jeremiah prophesied against all the nations.
So here's what I can find on this. Not quite what we're looking for, but maybe I'll find something in a little bit. Finally, there are various expansions in verses 11 through 14 that are understandable in the exilic and post-exilic periods. The shift in verse 11 from the statement that Judah will serve among the nations to the statement that Judah and others shall serve the king of Babylon. An adaptation in verse 13 of what seems to have been originally a title of the oracles against the nations. An expansion about the nations, verse 14, drawn from elsewhere. What remains is heavy with phraseology found elsewhere in the prose of the book, some of which, by the evidence of the present study, is authentic to Jeremiah, and some of which is redactional. Now, I'm not 100% sure if he's including, that book as one of the phrases, but I am still currently looking over this because he has.
Well, anyway, that's my interpretation is has pronounced against it. That seems like text that is that flows with the previous verses of this chapter, and then someone added, all is written in this book which Jeremiah prophesied against all the nations for the nations, blah, 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 blah. Someone added this commentary that then got copied in as if it were original text, is what I am interpreting it as.
Right, I could see that. I mean,
maybe incorrectly, but that's.
If I find something on it, I will let you know. But for now, we can continue. So for many nations and great kings shall make slaves even of them, and I will recompense them, according to their deeds and the work of their hands. So that's the end of that section. There's still more to the chapter, but that is the end of the section. Now we're getting into the cup of the Lord's wrath. That is incredible. Gotta love it, right? Starts off, thus the Lord, the God of Israel, said to me, take from my hand, this cup of wine.
Water?
This cup of the wine of wrath, and make all the nations to whom I send you drink it. They shall drink and stagger and be crazed because of the sword that I am sending among them. And of course, that last part there comes up a lot in times of war. So this cup of wine of wrath. Very weird syntax. So the Hebrew syntax is slightly odd. Yes, I could have told you that. It seems to say, this cup of wine, the wrath. In this translation, the words are understood as standing in opposition. This cup of wine, this cup of wrath.
Because mine says, take this cup of wine of wrath from my hand.
Yeah. So like two different ways to describe the same cup. So the prophecy, in effect, telescopes two different images. The cup of wrath is a figure for the destruction that will overtake the Babylonians. The sword is then a... Don't really 100% know how to pronounce this word. Synecdoche. I don't know what that is. Synecdoche.
Yep, never heard of it.
Nope, never. For the onslaught of the army that will overwhelm Babylonia. So quite a lot there. And as has already been pointed out in the chat, Cup of Wrath appears a lot of places, especially, Revelation is one of those very famous places.
I will point out in my text where it says wine of wrath, there actually is a winery called Wrath that actually has really good wine in California. And I would highly recommend it, sommelier that I am, for to consider a right. It's really relatively inexpensive wine and relatively high quality. So, cheers to Wrath wine.
That then you are suggesting that this is a prophecy and it has been fulfilled.
Oh wow.
That's incredible, Landon. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So the image of the drinking of a cup of wine as punishment is widespread in the Old Testament. Yeah, and there's a whole bunch of references. Psalms, Jeremiah, Habakkuk, Obadiah, Zechariah, Revelations. There's plenty of them. Yeah, the imagery is fairly straightforward, honestly. Let's continue. So I took the cup, from the Lord's hand, and made all the nations to whom the Lord sent me drink it. Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, its kings and officials, to make them a desolation and a waste, a hissing and a curse, as at this day.
Ooh.
So this already suggests being written after this stuff, because it says as at this day. Now, I don't know if that's just a translational thing or not, or if, this suggests that it's going to stay desolate. I don't know. There doesn't seem to be much on, hold on, what verse was that? That was verse 17? No, sorry, that was verse 18.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not really much on the textual stuff there. All right. Here we go. Some good old Egyptian stuff. Pharaoh, king of Egypt, his servants, his officials, all his people, and all the mixed tribes. All the mixed tribes among them. Damn mixed tribes.
Yes.
I bet Ezra and Nehemiah must love this already.
Mine says all the foreign people.
Mixed, around the same place. And all the mixed tribes among them, all the kings of the land of Uz, and all the kings of the land of the Philistines, Ashkelon, Gaza, Ekron, and the remnant of Ashdod. Now, these are some...
Ooh, yes.
I haven't seen these names in a long-ass time. Because, I'm sure you remember all these from the Old Testament. Sorry, we are still in the Old Testament. From, Genesis and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, listing off a bunch of them. Edom, Moab, and the sons of Ammon. All the kings of Tyre. All the kings of Sidon. All the kings of the coastlands across the sea. So, I think these are names of the kings here? Or?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Probably.
Dedan, Temna, Buz, and all who cut the corners of their hair? What?
Yeah, you're not supposed to cut your hair at certain spots, remember?
All right, I'm going to have, well, this would be a slightly different cultural thing. So I'm going to look at it, but I'm going to have some water first. Landon, what do you think about cutting the corners of hair?
So wonder. Yeah, I think that's a thing that sort of says that barbers have to do God's work. And you need to go to a godly barber, because if you cut the corners of your hair, bad things will happen. You'll drink wrath wine and be sent into exile. I don't know.
Oh, so here's actually something that might be helpful. So Dedan and Tema are both tribes and locations in northwest Arabia. They come up in some other places. In the Bible, it looks like in Isaiah, actually. Both are oases and caravan crossroads, and they were trade centers at all periods. That's actually interesting. The identity or location of Buz is unknown. The reading of the Greek here is Ros. If Buz is correct, one is led to an identification with the Akkadian Bazu mentioned in Assyrian inscriptions, in one of which Bazu is clearly in Arabia. So that's kind of neat. So for the phrase, all whose hair is shaven at the temple, how does he translate this? Hold on.
Mine says all who cut the corners of their hair.
Right. Mine says that too. But I'm checking how Holiday translates this. Maybe it's I'll have to check a few things here. Oh no, he translates it differently. And Dedan and Tema and Buz and all whose hair is shaven at the temple. Yeah, he translates it as temple. So that's interesting. Not sure what that's all about. So I am checking here. How does altar translate it? So and Dedan and Tema and Buz and all whose hair is cropped. And all whose hair is cropped. Okay. So lots of different ways to translate that, I guess. Not really
I
sure.
guess we're saying that we with our COVID haircuts are being biblical.
I suppose. So that's interesting how many different textual variants there are for that.
Yeah.
So that's verse 23.
Yes.
Okay, so verses 23 through 26 as a whole appear to have been an expansion in the exilic period. But there is not much on the word that's being used there, because if you're getting hair cut at the corners, but also hair cut at the temple, there's got to be some kind of textual issue there.
I mean, it sounds like there was some group of people that had a particular traditional way of doing their hair, and it's sort of saying, Stefan, Thomas, Booz, and all those people who styled their hair in that particular way. And what I was taking it as.
I mean, yeah, and it could be a holy thing, which is why it. But why would you translate it temple? I don't know.
Temple, as in they're cutting their hair back around. Temple in the head.
I see. Okay, that temple. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought.
Okay, that makes sense. Actually,
but it could be that's a stylistic thing, that's a nationalistic thing, that could also have been a religious thing for those people, and so I think they're sort of saying that group of people who do their hair in that particular way is how I am interpreting this.
Sure, that would make sense. Let's see here. So cutting their hair,
cutting the corners of the beard too is another thing. Young literal translation, cutting the corners of the beard, right? Could be this formation as well. So
yeah.
I think it has to do with a grooming style of some people that it was referring to. Anyway, verse 24.
Yes. All the kings of Arabia and all the kings of the mixed tribes who dwell in the desert, all the kings of Zimri, all the kings of Elam, and all the kings of Media, all the kings of the north, far and near, one after another, and all the kingdoms of the world that are on the face of the earth, and after them the king of Babylon shall drink. Okay, so king of Babylon is the last one to go. You're going to destroy everyone, and then you're going to destroy the big bad.
Yeah.
Definitely. Then you shall say to them, thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, drink, be drunk and vomit, fall and rise no more, because of the sword that I am sending among you. Yeah, he's gonna. Yeah, that cup of wine of wrath, right? It's gonna destroy you. You're gonna get
that wrath wine
sloshed. And if they refuse to accept the cup from your hand to drink, then you shall say to them, thus says the Lord of hosts, you must drink, for behold.
And it's right. If we can get some beholds in the chat room, it would be
absolutely
much appreciated.
For behold, I begin to work disaster at the city that is called by my name. And shall you go unpunished? You shall not go unpunished, for I am summoning a sword against all the inhabitants of the earth, declares the Lord of hosts. This is, Flood 2.0. It's not going to be a flood, but it's going to be Flood 2.0. It's going to have a similar purpose. You, therefore, shall prophesy against them all these words and say to them, the Lord will roar from on high, and from his holy habitation utter his voice. He will roar mightily against his fold, and shout like those who tread grapes against all the inhabitants of the earth. The clamor will resound to the ends of the earth, for the Lord has an indictment against the nations. He is entering into judgment with all flesh, and the wicked he will put to the sword, declares the Lord.
Wow, that's pretty dramatic. That wrath, wine of wrath. And for those who want ask for a previous reference, www.wrathwines.com. And just FYI, it's not a biblical name. It's referring to the grapes of wrath phrase.
For sure.
Well, and the book.
Cinematic work.
All right.
Free plug for a good winer.
And this little thing continues here. Thus says the Lord of hosts, behold.
Another one?
Behold.
Behold.
Disaster is going forth from nation to nation, and a great tempest is stirring from the farthest parts of the earth. And those pierced by the Lord on that day shall extend from one end of the earth to the other. They shall not be lamented or gathered or buried. They shall be dung on the surface of the ground. Man, don't you just love it when they talk about dung? No? Just me? Am I the only person that loves it? Oh, man.
Mr. Hankey gets a revisit.
Great.
Wail, you shepherds, and cry out, and roll in ashes, you lords of the flock. For the days of your slaughter and dispersion have come, and you shall fall like a choice vessel. Wow, okay. This seems a lot harsher than the last one. I mean, I'm not going to say that the last section wasn't harsh, but this seems to have stronger imagery.
But you got to build up, and once you sort of set the bar that high, the next jump has got to be, really stick it to them.
Yeah, that is accurate. No refuge will remain for the shepherds, nor escape for the lords of the flock. A voice, the cry of the shepherds, and the wail of the lords of the flock. For the Lord is laying waste their pasture. So a little bit of commentary on these few verses there. Remarkably, these three verses offer 3 times the parallelism of shepherds and lords of the flock. The latter phrase is not found otherwise in the Old Testament. And thus the parallelism is not either. The context here of the nations of the earth suggests that it is the whole company of the leaders of all the nations that is being addressed and judged. Sure, makes sense. Aside from just talking about the imagery, where it comes from, he also talks about certain groups of phrases and where they appear. So it's not like the most, complicated to parse out. And the peaceful folds are devastated. Oh, we just talked about the folds before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, verse 30. And the peaceful folds are devastated because of the fierce anger of the Lord. Like a lion, he has left his lair, for their land has become a waste because of the sword of the oppressor and because of his fierce anger. And that's the end of the chapter.
Wow.
And my throat hurts. What did you guys think of that chapter?
That was a pretty it's a pretty lamenting sort of anger thing. I'm wondering, for example, in the more modern context, particularly pre-creation of the State of Israel, did various Jews use this these kind of things to sort of say this is a prophecy that people were not Orthodox enough, and that's why God is oppressing the Jews? Was that a kind of running commentary for for centuries?
The texture, the fact that it exists the way it does, is already running commentary on it. I'm not. Yeah, excuse me, I guess, for the burp. But yeah, I would say that the fact that they wrote it this way, that they wrote it because Israel was fucking up and God had to do something about it. The author was like, hey, look at that. God has done something about it. So he's really just putting a tradition, a thought that already existed onto paper.
So let's put this land of Israel into geologic context, right? I mentioned before about continental drift. and I was doing the work and looking at the models, and what the model shows is that the Arabian Peninsula is advancing towards the Anatolia Peninsula. Right? So Arabia meets Turkey, and the area that is Israel, Lebanon, Syria gets squished. And by about 25 million years, that the Arabian Peninsula is actually beginning to butt up against the Anatolia Mountains, right? And so places like Ararat and so forth are folded up even higher, and the so-called Holy Land gets smushed. By the time you get to 50 million years from now, the Mediterranean has slammed shut, closed shut, because Africa has sort of smashed into that spot. So when you say this land of the forefathers forever and ever and ever, I wonder what God's going to do with regards to continental drift when that land promised to Abraham and his descendants forever essentially is folded into nothing, and the Arabian Peninsula and essentially Saudi Arabia and Turkey meet. It's pretty much smashed about 25 million years from now, given the current directions of continents. And by 50 million years, it's not even there. So
they're going to move it by hand, Landon. It's by hand. They have 15 million years to 25 million years to move it by hand. That's what they're going to do.
See, I would just I would point back to what Alter said before, right, about it just being a very, very long span of time.
And so this notion of the Holy Land and blah 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 is going to be problem. I mean, the state of Israel has some big geologic problems coming up.
Yeah, and
ironic. It's ironic that cities like Mecca and Medina, important to Islam, are going to be sticking around for quite a while, but Jerusalem and the so-called Holy Land seem to be smushed into nothing.
What a bummer. Well, I guess they're going to have to work that one out. I bet you someone's going to have a war over it. Okay.
With Earth.
Yeah, they might have a few other texts to talk about.
All right. So, I guess we can hop into chapter 26 then. And you know what? That requires me to grab a different commentary.
Crazy.
All right. So when you are ready, I will begin.
Yeah, this is part 2 of Jeremiah, of the commentary on Jeremiah from William Holiday.
William Holiday. Very good. And by the way, I should mention that they have a wish list that I believe is an Amazon wish list.
Yes, it is.
And they have books on there they prioritized. And if you go and buy them a book, you select the gift address, it shows up and they use that book for your entertainment. So you are investing in the show and you get these great returns. So you're encouraged to go to Amazon wish list and to buy a book or two. So chapter 26.
And make sure to drop a like if you haven't. So, yeah.
Yes, and thumbs up and all that sort of good things. And of course, tell your neighbors, your landlords, your ex-presidents, and and other officials.
Yeah, they all need to hear about it.
So, chapter 26. In the beginning. Wait a minute. Did you see that before? In the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, king of Judah, this word came from the Lord, saying, "Thus says the Lord, stand in the court of the Lord's house and speak to all the cities of Judah who have come to worship in the Lord's house, and all the words that I have commanded you to speak to them. Do not omit a word." Exclamation.
And of course, omitting a word is that comes up a lot about like changing the text of these holy books, right? Like I think comes in at the end of Deuteronomy, right? I think it does, but there's definitely a part in Revelations about adding to or removing from the word.
and I look forward to the day when we read that text and there's considerable commentary about that text there, that particular phrase.
I cannot wait until we get to Revelation because I have so much to say on Revelation. Thank you, Chris.
We will have to have a giant party of everyone who has, who has contributed to this wonderful work that the Milk Atheists have been doing, and maybe we can read simultaneously the last verse together. But anyway, but it says, "Do not omit a word." Now, this sort of suggests that can you add words, right? Omitting is naughty, but can you add words like what we think these commentaries stuff, or can you translate words?
Well, from this verse, I guess you could, but there are other verses that say you shouldn't do that either. So,
yeah, and I think, and of course, within context, it's basically it's really a commandment to Jeremiah, saying, don't omit a word. Don't omit a word. Tell them everything I'm going to tell me. So what are we going to say?
So hold on. The implication is that the prophet would mitigate the word out of fear of consequences. In this way, the narrator prepares for the opposition depicted in verses 7 through 9. I don't know what the Hebrew is, but there's a word there that means diminish or reduce, the same notion that the prophet is not to withhold any word, no matter how unwelcome, is rendered elsewhere by two other synonymous words. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. So it's sort of like saying, don't hold back. You're gonna blast some people verbally, and don't be timid, right?
Yeah. So okay. But
don't like it.
In Deuteronomy, so the one fresh phrase in the verse is "do not subtract a thing," a phrase found also in Deuteronomy. It is a formula found generally in ancient Near Eastern legal formula. In general Near Eastern legal and wisdom texts. But in Deuteronomy, Moses instructs the Israelites not to subtract anything from what Moses commands them, because it's a legal document pretty much. Those are so much of the law codes of the commandments of all 613
you're stuck with them all, including the silly ones.
Yeah, and they're legal phrases. It's legal phraseology. So so you could have left something out because of fear of consequence. So,
well, we're going to see some consequences in a little bit. But verse 3, they say, perhaps they will listen, and everyone will turn from his evil way, that I may repent of this calamity which I am planning to do to them because of their evil deeds.
Yeah, this is coming before too, where he's like
God saying, well, maybe they might listen and I don't have to do this thing.
Right. It's coming before where he's like,
but does God know, or is God speculating, or what's going on here?
It's hard to say, but he has suggested that he might not do it in the past, like in previous readings, also in Jeremiah specifically. There were times where it's like, well, if they listen to me, like, let's see if they'll listen to me. Let's see if I don't have to do this. It's come up before.
But this seems to be one of these very things that the omniscience of God is kind of variable, right?
Yes, I would agree.
Because verse 3, it says, perhaps they will listen, right? Well, you go to the form of God that knows everything, has planned everything, and everything's according to God, and you say, but right? And so which God is it? Right?
Well, if we're going by stuff that we've learned about God, it could easily be argued that he's not omniscient. So like that's I'm just saying it could easily be argued that he's just not omniscient. So it wouldn't really cause too much of an issue. I think there are like a couple verses that it would cause an issue, but yeah, it's hard to say.
Fun apologetics that that cling to omniscient, all-knowing, everything's planned, even the Calvinistic, deterministic thing, and that this is being God being merciful. But verse 4. And you'll say to them, thus says the Lord, if you will not listen to me to walk in my law, which I have set before you, to listen to the words of my servants, the prophets, for whom I have been sending you again and again, but you have not listened, then I will make this house like Shiloh, and that this city I will make a curse to all the nations of the earth. Pretty stern stuff there.
I mean, this is if we, kind of hit on the previous list of cities, I don't remember if Shiloh was one of them in the last chapter, was it?
Might have been.
I
kind of remember.
I don't think Shiloh was, no. But I could imagine it'd be just as cursed. I remember Shiloh popping up in previous readings.
Yeah, Shiloh
early on.
Here, there's references to Jeremiah 7:12 and 7:14 and 1 Samuel verse 4:10 through 12.
Yeah, very, very
And
famous city.
Samuel 22, and even Psalms 78:60 and 78:61.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of that one, so it's conceivable that the use of the phrase here is intended to give resonance to the reference to Shiloh, since the same Psalm 78 that makes use of the phrase being, "Then I shall make this house like Shiloh." Hold on. Okay. Yeah, since the same Psalm 78 that makes use of the phrase mentions the fall of Shiloh later on as a punishment for Ephraim's unwillingness to walk in Yahweh's law. It is to be noted that there is no reference to, quote, this city in 7:1 through 15, but rather to this place. A recent study suggests that house and city are a parallel word pair. So that's interesting, I guess.
It says makes this house like Shiloh, and this city I will make a curse.
Yeah, exactly.
So I will also mention, if this commentary is interesting to you, if you could please click that like button, that thumbs up button.
Yeah.
That would certainly help.
Listen to the smartest guy on the planet.
Yeah. So I'll go on with verse 7. And the priests and the prophets and all the people heard Jeremiah speaking these words in the house of the Lord. And when Jeremiah finished speaking all the words the Lord had commanded him to speak to all the people, the priests and the prophets and all the people seized him, saying, "You must die. Why have you prophesied in the name of the Lord, saying, this house will be like Shiloh, this city will be desolate without inhabitants?" And the people gathered about Jeremiah in the house of the Lord.
So apparently there is some nuance to the phrase "you must die," but it's in Hebrew, so I can't tell you the nuance.
Yeah, and in verse 8 there is references to several things in verse 8 of that "you must die." Jeremiah 11:19, Jeremiah 18:23, Lamentations 4:13 and 14, even Matthew 25 verses 35 and 36 and Matthew 21 verses 35 and 36 and Matthew 23 verses 34 and 35. You must die, right? So basically seized him saying, "You must die. Why have you..." Then they repeated that same thing, that same phrase. "This house will be like Shiloh, the city will be desolate without inhabitant." Although
one thing I do want to point out actually is so the formula is not used in the official judicial sense, since the trial proper is not narrated until verse 10. Rather, the crowd uses the formula with the connotation "you should be sentenced to death."
Okay, so yes, and interesting, by the way, verse 9, they say, why have you prophesied, saying, this house will be like Shiloh, this city will be desolate without inhabitant? Because if you look at verse 6, it says, I will make this house like Shiloh, and this city I will make a curse to all the nations of the earth. So the crowd didn't properly, if this text is correct, quote Jeremiah. They didn't listen. They changed the meaning. He said, this house will be like Shiloh, the city will be, instead of, see, in verse 6, it says, instead of make a curse to all the nations of the earth, it says, they say, the city will be desolate without inhabitant.
Well, I mean,
So verse 9 is not an exact quote of verse 6 in my text.
okay, looks like Holiday is just calling it a paraphrase of that. I mean, they're pretty much saying the same thing, even though they're different.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, kind of, but there's a make a curse to all the nations of the earth versus this will, curse all the nations of the earth seem to be very different than make desolate without inhabitant. Because if it was make desolate and no one was living there, I bet
you
bunch
could
of the nation of the earth would say, okay, sucks to be them.
Yeah, but you could also call that cursed. Maybe not cursed in like a modern, maybe not cursed in like a modern context, but
and to some extent as well, I can imagine Jeremiah sitting in the house of the Lord, and he didn't just say this sentence and the people said you must die. He probably railed for quite some time. He probably did a whole good fire and brimstone and naughty stuff.
Well, so, yeah, Jeremiah was pretty good at that.
Verse 6 is kind of a really redaction of it, and so verse 9 is merely them sort of again giving a flavor of stuff. So,
yeah,
because the Lord said, "Don't hold back." So the people say, you should be prosecuted. You should go. I guess you're saying it should be prosecuted, and put on trial for a potential death penalty because of what you've said.
Mm.
All right. So shall we go on with verse 10?
Yep.
And when the princes of Judah heard these things, they came up from the king's house to the house of the Lord and sat in the entrance of the new gate of the Lord's house.
Yeah, so the new gate is also mentioned in 36:10, where it is described as in the upper court, but its location is not more precisely known. Traditionally, commentators have identified it with the upper gate, built by Jotham in 2 Kings 15:35. So first Abrabanel, and so recently Louis Hughes Vincent. Similarly, there is an identification with the upper Benjamin gate mentioned in 22.
Yep. There's also a reference to Jeremiah 36:10, the entrance.
Yes.
To the new gate.
That I did reference that.
Okay. Yeah. So then the priests and the prophets spoke to the officials and all the people, saying, a death sentence for this man, for he has prophesied against the city, and you have heard him in your hearing.
Yeah, so it makes sense with the last thing that we had before.
Yeah. And then Jeremiah spoke to all the officials and to all the people, saying, the Lord sent me to prophesy against this house and against the city all the words that you have heard. Now, therefore, amend your ways, your deeds, and obey the voice of the Lord your God. The Lord will change, and the Lord will change his mind about this misfortune, which I have prophesied against you. So,
yeah,
one last chance.
Yep. One last chance again.
But as for me, behold.
Behold.
And if I get a behold in the chat room there too, thank you very much for the previous behold. But if we get another one, and for me, I am in your hands. Do with me as is good and right in your sight.
There's some commentary on that one.
For certain.
Landon.
That if you put me, go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, there's some commentary on that one. So throughout this stark confrontation, Jeremiah exhibits steady resolution. He has just reiterated the burden of his prophecy, and if the people refuse to listen, he is prepared to submit to his fate. So sounds very Jeremiah-y. Jeremiah.
Biblical.
Biblical. Jeremiah, perhaps.
Because they said, I am in your hands. Do with me as is good and right in your sight, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess he's kind of saying, hey, if you think this is correct and right and legal, he's not saying, I don't care, kill me, screw you all, I'm going home. He's saying, he's trying to, I think, appeal to them, saying, well, if you think this is legal and right, but then he comes around it again and saying, only know for certain, verse 15, that if you put me to death, you will bring innocent blood on yourselves and on this city and on the inhabitants. For truly the Lord has sent me to speak all these words in your hearing.
Yeah, so blood guilt involves the whole community. So we can reference Deuteronomy 19:10 through 13. A notion Jeremiah underlines, quote, yourselves and this city and its inhabitants. If Jeremiah's accusers imply that he is guilty of blasphemy, Jeremiah says explicitly that his executioners would bring blood guilt on the whole community. So where does Yahweh's will lie? Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing of the people saying this person should be tried, the death penalty for saying these things, and
well, the whole point is like
okay, if you think that's the right thing to do, but God sent me, and if you kill me, you're gonna have bad things happening. But why didn't they come back and say, yeah, but you prophesied that we're gonna be laid to waste anyway, so screw you?
That's a fair point. Yeah. So. Did you already finish verse 16 or no?
No, I'm in verse 15.
Okay. Tell me when you're done with verse 16.
Okay, so in my translation, a new paragraph. Then the officials and all the people said to the priests and the prophets, no death penalty for this man, for he has spoken to us the name of the Lord our God. Ooh.
So this man does. That was verse 16, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So this man does not deserve the sentence of death, for he has spoken to us in the name of the Lord our God. Faced with a theological argument, the officials appear to turn to the accusers and say, "This is not in our jurisdiction." But such a conclusion doubtless modernizes the text. What is clear is that Jeremiah convinced the judges, who declared for acquittal, as did all the people. Are we to assume the people are fickle? Yes, I would say so. If we've learned anything from reading the Bible.
Did Jeremiah fire and brimstone kind of convince him, saying, okay, you can kill me if you think that's right, but if you do, guilt, right? So verse 17. Then some of the elders of the land rose up and spoke to all the assembly of people, saying, Micah of Morsheth prophesied in the days of Hezekiah the king of Judah, and he spoke to all the people of Judah, saying, thus said the Lord of hosts, has said, Zion will be plowed as a field, and Jerusalem will be overcome with ruins, and the mountain of the house of the high places a forest.
So the elders cite what is now Micah 3:12 to reinforce the judgment of the officials. There is precedent 100 years earlier for a prophet speaking against Jerusalem without being executed. The details of exegesis of verse 18 may be found fully in commentaries on Micah. The Morashite is one from Morasheth, doubtless identical with Morasheth Goth, Micah 1:14. It is identified with the modern Tal el Judaith Atlas of Israel grid, whatever that means. About 40 kilometers. So actually an Atlas of Israel. Okay. about 40 kilometers southwest of Jerusalem on the edge of Shephelah. The verbal phrase translated used to prophecy is striking, though not without parallel. So just a little bit more context here. Actually, hold on. We'll get to the context because I don't think you got through verse 20 yet, did you?
Yeah, let me go again. I'll read verse 18 again, and it flows into 19. I think is probably what you want to look at.
Okay.
So Micah Morsheth prophesied in the days of Hezekiah, the king of Judah, and he spoke to all the people of Judah, saying, "Thus said the Lord of hosts has said, Zion will be plowed as a field, and Jerusalem will become ruins, and the mountain of the house of the high places a forest." Did Hezekiah, king of Judah, and all of Judah put him to death? Did he not fear the Lord and entreat the favor of those of the Lord? And the Lord changed his mind about the misfortune of which he had pronounced against them? For we are committing a great evil against ourselves.
Yeah, so now we are seeing what I guess we're seeing what happens when they do something good. They get saved, but of course this is just happening to Jeremiah. But the rest of Israel, no.
So we have a new paragraph starting in 20. Indeed, there was also a man who prophesied in the name of the Lord, Uriah the son of Shemaiah?
Shemaiah. Yeah.
Of Kathirath
Jerim, I guess.
Kathirath Jerim, okay. He prophesied against the city and against this land the words similar to all those of Jeremiah.
So
when King Joy, okay. So,
yeah.
So he's referring to someone else. Yeah.
Yes. So unlike Micah, whose prophecies became part of the canon, there is no written record of Uriah's prophecies, and all that is known of him is what is reported here. His fate proved to be the opposite of Micah's.
No. And when the king of Jehoiakim and all his mighty men and all the officials heard his words, the king sought to put him to death. But Uriah heard it, and he was afraid and fled and went to Egypt.
As you do.
Okay, because that's the thing. You go back to your where you came from, I guess. And then King Jehoiakim sent men to Egypt, Etham, son of Ashbor, and certain men, and went into Egypt. They sought Uriah from Egypt and led him to the king Jehoiakim and slew him with a sword and cast his dead body into a burial place of the common people.
Man, so that's what they did to him. That sucks. All he did was say the word of God, and look what happened. What a bummer.
Verse 24, new paragraph. But the hand of Achim, the son of Shetham, was with Jeremiah, so he was not given in the hands of the people to be put to death.
So this the hand of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan. Ahikam is not mentioned again in the book. He had been old enough in 622 to have served with his father in the circle of advisors to Josiah. It is now 13 years later. It is his brother Jeremiah who would, not Jeremiah, Jeremiah. It is his brother Jeremiah who would be a part of the circle of advisors around Jehoiakim when the scroll was burned. And it will be his son Gedaliah to whom the Babylonians will entrust Jeremiah in 587, and whom the Babylonians will appoint to be governor over the province.
Yeah.
So I guess a kind of family tie.
Your press briefing there, but yeah, that is Jeremiah chapter 26.
Yes, and we have one more chapter to go for the day, but No.
Hey, are we back? Is there some sound problems again?
Forget it. Yep.
No sound problems at all.
Everything's great.
Oh, okay. I guess there are no sound problems at all.
Oh, okay.
All right. Well, in that
Everything's
case, then before we hop into the reading, I'm just gonna have some water then, and you're gonna have to deal with, I guess there's no one really to get raptured.
But back to the speaking about this land for forever. It looks like that part of the Middle East gets kind of squished together, and basically Arabia and the Anatolia, Turkey, kind of squeeze together, and Syria, and even Iraq and Syria, and well, I guess Kuwait probably survives, but that whole Syria, Lebanon, Israel gets kind of squished together and goes away somewhere in the 25 to 50 million year zone.
Can't wait. All right.
Then where is the promised land and where is the Holy Land? Maybe people were really railing against continental drift as opposed to.
Don't worry, Landon. Hollow Earth. They'll get it.
Also, a little bit more here. A little bit more context on the last verse there. So Shaphan was a royal scribe, a high court position. He played an important role in the discovery of the book of teaching in the temple around 622 BCE. Ahikam then would have been a well-placed official. Yeah. Okay. So let's hop into chapter 27.
Yes.
The final chapter for the day. We got all these commentaries here. Man, this is so glad Ruben is usually here. Because then I can read and not read and read. Because you're reading twice. Reading twice. Ridiculous. Chapter 27 presents exceptional difficulties in text criticism. The pluses in the Masoretic over the Greek are large indeed. So, man, all right. Lots of textual differences here, I guess. Lots of additional stuff in one form than another. Oh, okay. So this is actually kind of important here. The text difficulty of verse 1 has direct bearing on the setting of the incident. The reading of the Masoretic in the beginning of the reign, or perhaps in the ascension year, which we talked about before, of Jehoiakim, is impossible, given the mention of Zedekiah in verses 3 and 12. These words must have been copied erroneously from 26:1. A few manuscripts and the Peshitta read the king's name correctly as Zedekiah, but, quote, in the beginning of the reign still remains. Since 28:1 begins, quote, in that year, and defines it as the fourth year, and since that fourth year of Zedekiah, 594, is appropriate for the event narrated in 27:3, that data must have stood here instead of, quote, in the beginning of the reign. So, yeah, lots of textual difficulties. Just to read the first verse here. In the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, this word came to Jeremiah from the Lord. Yeah, and of course there is a textual note here. On Zedekiah or Jehoiakim. So, although the text may say Jehoiakim, it should be Zedekiah. So, that is very interesting. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of them. So, all right, I'm just going to stay on this page, actually. So I'm going to just continue here.
Would it help if I read this chapter and you did the commentary?
No, it's okay. I got this. Thus the Lord said to me, make yourself straps and yoke bars and put them on your neck. So those are the things that hold cattle, right?
A little bit of bondage going on here.
Oh, man. Bondage is tight. That means two things. So the text of verse 2 has a bearing on form. In 28:1, we find to me in both the Masoretic and the Greek, but the style reverts to third-person references to Jeremiah beginning in verse 5, there, so that the text of 28:1 must be restored to Jeremiah. Here in 27:2, the Masoretic has to me, an expression lacking in the Greek. There are no further clues in the remainder of the chapter by which to clarify the reference. Given the unity of chapters 27 and 28, it is better to conclude that the expression to me in verse 2 is an erroneous secondary addition, and that 28:1 has to me by attraction. So, more textual difficulties. Continuing on here. Send word to the king of Edom, the king of Moab, the king of Ammon, the king of Tyre, and the king of Sidon by the hand of the envoys who have come to Jerusalem, to Zedekiah, king of Judah. Okay, yeah, there we go. There's Zedekiah right there. So obviously textual mistake earlier on. Give them this charge for their masters. Thus says the Lord, the God of hosts. Wow, I said that all wrong.
What does the Lord
Thus,
of God of hosts
hold
say?
on, no. Thus, I said that all wrong. Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel. Said that all sorts are wrong. This is what you shall say to your masters. It is I who by my great power and my outstretched arm have made the earth, with the men and animals that are on the earth, and I give it to whomever it seems right to me. That's a little bit different than we heard before. Now I have given all these lands into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and I have given him also the beasts of the field to serve him. All the nations shall serve him, and his son and his grandson, until the time of his own land comes. Then many nations and great kings shall make him their slave. Okay, so this is kind of, flipping the Genesis stuff on their head, right? So you have, referencing the creation of everything, including the animals and the people and all that. And now, instead of the thing is, it can easily be argued that, Adam, the thing is, I don't think that Genesis is supposed to be taken as a literal creation story. I just don't think it's meant to be that. Here's how this stuff happened. No. So when they're talking about, Adam and Eve and their family and whatnot, it would be everybody, but not genetically everybody. They're just talking about people in general and not a genetic line. So that's why, when their kids leave, when they leave the garden, there are still other people in other places that Cain would have to go meet later, right? That, he'd have to go off and build cities.
Yeah.
And there are a whole bunch of other people, but they weren't specifically said to be created that way. So it would be from a different line, I suppose. But this is a reversal of Genesis, where, he has given, instead of giving dominion to one group of people, he's giving dominion of these things to a different group of people. In this case, the Babylonians. So, yeah, there's that. At least that's, in my opinion, there. I think that was verse. What verse was that? 6? Yeah, that was verse 6.
6.
Yeah, there are. Oh my God, there's a plethora of textual difficulties with verse 6. Oh boy. Okay. So I'm just gonna get to some interpretation. Yahweh identifies himself as the one who's responsible for Nebuchadnezzar's steady taking over of one kingdom after another, which is fair. We've heard that a whole bunch of times. The reading. Okay, so there. Yeah. More textual differences. The reading, the earth is preferable to the Masoretic reading, these lands. The reference is to the omnipotence of Nebuchadnezzar over everything on earth. I still think that's it's supposed to parallel Genesis in some way. Whether one goes first or the other one, I think it is supposed to parallel this idea. Really not much more on that, actually. I would have figured there was more, honestly. Okay. Here's actually something I think would be very cool. Because I recently talked about this in a video. So verse 7. No, sorry, verse 8. But if any nation or kingdom will not serve this Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and put its neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon, I will punish that nation with the sword, with famine, and with pestilence, declares the Lord. Obviously, those themes come up a whole lot in the Bible. I talked about them in my Heavenly Horseman video. But that phraseology appears a lot of places. Hard to miss, honestly. Those specific threats, right? Famine, pestilence, and then we're talking about, my interpretation was civil war for one of them, right? You have war and rumors of war as two different things. With pestilence declares the Lord, until I have consumed it by his hand. So do not listen to your prophets, your diviners, your dreamers, your fortune tellers, or your sorcerers who are saying to you, you shall not serve the king of Babylon. For it is a lie that they are prophesying to you, with the result that you will be removed from your land, and that I will drive you out, and you will perish. But any nation that will bring its neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon and serve him, I will leave on its own land to work it and dwell there, declares the Lord. So this is this may have been his experience, because here's how the exile worked. So they were sent. It wasn't like the Assyrian invasion, where it was like a whole bunch of people, moving in, and not very many were moved elsewhere. This is like most people were moved elsewhere. Very few were left. And yeah, that's that. So it's like, it's a much more extreme version of an Assyrian invasion, I guess. So there's that. Maybe he was like one of the lucky ones, right? Or something.
Pretty thorough smashing, because again, it's those high places, right? If they had just taken care of the high places.
Yeah, they had to get rid of that. They could not have kept it for that long. Like, obviously that model was unstable. All right. To Zedekiah, king of Judah, I spoke in like manner. Bring your necks under the yoke of the king of Babylon, and serve him and his people, and live. Why will you and your people die by the sword, by famine, and by pestilence, as the Lord has spoken concerning any nation that will not serve the king of Babylon? Do not listen to the words of the prophets who are saying to you, you shall not serve the king of Babylon, for it is a lie that they are prophesying to you. I have not sent them, declares the Lord, but they are prophesying falsely in my name, with the result that I will drive you out and you will perish, you and the prophets who are prophesying to you. Harsh words.
Wow.
Then I spoke to the priests and to all this people, saying, thus says the Lord, do not listen.
What does the Lord say?
Do not listen to the words of your prophets who are prophesying to you, saying, behold.
Behold.
The vessels of the Lord's house will now shortly be brought back from Babylon. Okay, so yeah, he's like, so there are a bunch of people saying, we'll be back anytime now. We'll be back shortly, folks. We have it under control. But Jeremiah's all like,
now you hear?
But Jeremiah's all like, no, that's not what's going to happen. We're going to be stuck there for a long time, and you're going to have to listen to the Babylonians. So don't be lying there, false prophets. How dare you?
No. Don't mess up. Do the right thing.
So And behold, the vessels of the Lord's house will now shortly be brought back from Babylon, for it is a lie that they are prophesying to you. Do not listen to them. Serve the king of Babylon and live. Why should this city become a desolation? So in order to preserve the city, just listen to your oppressors. Yeah, that's of course. If they are prophets, and if the word of the Lord is with them, then let them intercede with the Lord of hosts, that the vessels that are left in the house of the Lord, in the house of the king of Judah, and in Jerusalem may not go to Babylon. You know, he could just use that argument against himself. Why doesn't he do it?
Yeah. I mean, because God, look what he did to Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, he zapped them. Why does he have to have somebody else do the dirty work?
Right. The thing is, he kind of gave, reasoning earlier on, right? Like, he gave justification in the rest of the text. Like, he tried, couldn't do anything. So, but the question then becomes, like, why would he expect them to be able to do it? Like, if he, someone who does have this connection to God, can't do it, why would he expect them to do it?
Triple standard.
Okay. Let's continue on here. We're almost done. For thus says the Lord of hosts concerning the pillars, the sea, the stands, and the rest of the vessels that are left in this city. And of course, those are the vessels that were described when they were constructing the temple, right? The sea was that huge cauldron outside. It was on the 12 bowls, one for each tribe of Israel. If you guys remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have everything there. Which Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, did not take away when he took into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon Jeconiah, the son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, and thus all the nobles of Judah and Jerusalem. You know what's interesting? We have been saying for a while now that we would expect that the ark would have been taken, right? And because they melted everything down in Kings, right? In 2 Kings, they melted all that stuff, and you would assume that the ark was included. Now, while this verse doesn't mention the ark, it excludes the ark. It includes a lot of stuff from the temple. So it makes you question whether or not the ark was one of these things. Now, because it doesn't say, specifically that the ark was or wasn't one of these things, it just makes you wonder. I don't know. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it. You gotta wonder. Hold on. What verse was that? That was... So 19 and 20. I'm sure there's some commentary on that. I feel like that is compared... I feel like they probably compare that a lot. Oh, yeah, they do. They compare it a lot to stuff. So Volts, or Vols, rejects the originality of any of this material. But the divine word at the beginning of verse 22... Actually, yeah, I should probably get done with verse 22. I'll just read to the end. Why not? Doesn't matter.
Go for it.
Yeah. Because it's very, very close. Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, concerning the vessels that are left in the house of Judah. Sorry, in the house of the Lord, in the house of the king of Judah, and in Jerusalem. They shall be carried to Babylon and remain there until the day when I visit them, declares the Lord. Then I will bring them back and restore them to peace. So that is the end of the verse and the end of the chapter. But for verses 19 through 20 there, so Vols rejects the originality of any of this material, but the divine word at the beginning of verse 22, to Babylon they shall be taken, resembles the word to Pashur in 26, to Babylon you shall go. I don't know. It resembles it, sure, but I don't know if there's enough there to make a connection. There's no reason not to follow the guidance of the Greek text here. Jeremiah's word that Nebuchadnezzar will take even more vessels to Babylon than he took in 597 was intended to contradict the optimistic prophets. For details on the... he's just referencing other commentaries on pillars, sea, and stands. It was during the exilic period that the interest shifted from the fulfillment of the prophecy to the recovery of those vessels. Hence the expansions in the Masoretic. So there's actually more stuff in that text, which is kind of interesting, honestly. Okay, so I guess he has a lot of oh damn, a whole lot of this is like not even in the Greek. So verses
so what happened?
well the thing is they're just omitted. Okay, that's I mean, I would have to read like a whole section here. Most of these are, well, a good amount of them are spelling errors, but I would have to find like the exact section. But there's a whole bunch of textual difficulties. Like it's missing like a whole part. Like those last yeah, it's really interspersed actually. Like, because there are references to so many verses being omitted in the Greek. There's parts of verses omitted in the Greek, and then how, like, which hold on, which verse is this? This is 8D. Hold on, let me find 8D. And I'm gonna read it out. Wait, what the hell? Am I just reading this wrong? No, I think it should be 8D. But it doesn't seem like it's separated that way. Oh no, it is. Okay. So let's see. I shall visit them, or that nation, oracle of Yahweh, until I have finished giving them into his hand. But the Masoretic text reads, until I have finished them in his hand, a reading which makes little sense. The Greek reads, until they are consumed by his hand. Okay, so yeah, different readings, different stuff is included. Like if I'm just going down the list here of parts of verses. So verse 1a, so like the very first part, the whole of verse 1 is missing in the Greek, and the Masoretic, by contrast, is clearly mistaken, but we went over that earlier on. Let's see, verse 2a, omit with the Greek. The words are evidently a secondary accommodation. Yeah, lots of, oh boy. Yeah, lots of, or is he suggesting a lot of omissions? I don't know, but either way, the text is just really sloppy.
It's all messed up.
The textual history is just nuts, it looks like. Yeah, not much to say more on that, but it just seems like, Jeremiah is he has the real word. He knows that the people are fucked, so he doesn't want the people being lied to. So he says, "Hey, liars, fuck you. I hate everything you do," and then continues with a nice little jig about why they suck. I bet you that's what happened. So, yeah, they shouldn't be lying that they're coming back. They're giving the people optimism and hope.
And for text that says it has to be preserved 100%, this is pretty damaged. Or are we past that?
Well, the whole thing about being. Are you referencing the
beginning of our readings today?
Oh no, that was a little bit different. No, that wasn't about preservation. That was about well, I guess it wasn't, but it wasn't okay, in the same way. So
either way, this translation seems pretty messed up.
Yeah, you shouldn't take anything away, and let's just throw in or add from the Word of God, right? But I would say that there are other verses that talk about preserving, like the Word and stuff, but this is. The textual transmission is difficult. That's one thing. And the fact that we don't have any originals is another thing. Maybe they exist somewhere on Earth, but we just don't have them. And and it's just the job of the textual scholar, the textual critic, to figure out what was probably the original. And even then, we won't know. Even if we have like a really good text, even if let's say we find like a manuscript of this section tomorrow, and like a really old one, very well done, like that would help immensely with this. But here's something that people don't talk about enough. Our earliest copies of the full biblical text, or of the full Tanakh, I should say, are like medieval. Like those are like full.
Like what kind of years?
Like around like 1,000, I think. I think it's still medieval, right?
1,300 to 1,000, yeah.
Yeah, but like either way, like around that time is when like our full texts come in for the Tanakh. At least full manuscripts. But like we have plenty of bits and pieces here and there, so we can reconstruct a good chunk of it. But
either way,
it would be cool to find an original. Let's just put it that way. Textual history is nuts that way. It would help clear up a lot of issues. But yeah, either way, thank you for sticking around for the show today. We started late. We had issues. We're a person down, but you know what? We got through it. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do some shilling.
Well, I'm going to think as well, is that we're anticipating Ruben to make a full emergence out of his quarantine, which was done in a appropriate abundance of caution. And I hope those who also find themselves in a potential exposure take similar precaution. And I think I want to give kudos to him for caring for other people.
Yeah,
to the
that's
point
nice
of
of him.
Himself.
I miss him, but I'm happy he made the safe choice.
Yeah, definitely. Safe choice is better. You know what they say, better safe than sorry. Other cliches. So we want to thank everyone for watching. If you haven't yet, be sure to drop a like and subscribe. We have an Amazon wish list. We got lots of great books on there. You can get us a book and we can read it. We can use it as a source or use it here on the table. And oh my God, what is this?
I'm just gonna sit here.
What is this?
For 4 seconds.
Oh,
and no one will
this
expect me to say
this is the
anything.
man behind the curtain.
Yes.
Yeah, here he is.
I'm definitely Ruben. Don't forget to like this stuff. Thanks.
Yep, that's the guy that gives you your product. So let's see what else we got. We have a Patreon. Lots of cool stuff on Patreon. You could win a shirt just like Landon did today.
Yes, you can win a shirt like this, right? You can, or something new. So there you go. Behold a T-shirt.
Yeah, or you could get any books we publish, including ones that we already have published. Lots of cool stuff you can get on Patreon. You can be on the show even.
Yeah, and I know you have other shows coming up. You do something on Friday.
Yeah, yes. We have, of course, Friday Apocryphal Podcast. We'll be starting something on Saturdays as well. That's going to be a Quran show. Yeah. Doing lots of stuff. Let's see what else we got. Facebook and Twitter, free to follow us on there. If you just want a shirt and don't want to, do the whole giveaway thing, you could do that too. Link is in the description. There.
You could be Landon. You could get T-shirts every month.
Yeah, you could do that.
or have a maybe a 1 in chance, right?
Yeah.
And
you could give
also join after shows where you have cool discussions about all kinds of eclectic things.
Yeah, it's fun stuff. So be cool.
All right.
Because that help is nice. But anyways, Landon, do you have anything that you want to shill?
Well, I would definitely consider shilling certainly our good friend Pint Monk and stuff he does. I also Ansgar and David in their Gothic Puppet Theater. They're doing some fun things there. The Ben podcast is also a fun thing to check out, as well as this lovely channel.
Ah, yes, this lovely channel. You could put it that way. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We will be back to normal on Friday. And speaking of Friday, we will see you on Friday.
Thanks for watching.